All right, here I am. It has been a while since my last live stream or video, so I apologize, but we've been really busy here on the homestead and ministry and so on. And so I just haven't gotten around to it, and also haven't been super motivated by, events. And then I was sitting there yesterday and a lot of thoughts were coming to my mind and I wrote them all down. So I'm going to talk through them. I'm going to go through them like I normally do. And, you guys are welcome to comment. Welcome. J.A. Dudley, shalom. Um, Let me just look them over too. Right, okay. And who else is here? Patriot Preparedness, shalom. And Deborah H, shalom. Stephen Wilson, shalom. OMG, are you burnt? You talk about right here. Yeah, it's a little bit of sunburn, and it's also a little bit of rosacea, which I'm treating. But yeah, I was out in the sun without my hat on, which I normally do have on, and I got some sun on my face. So yeah, little red face there. Okay, who else is in the chat? Angie Kelly, shalom. And Voodoo Kitchen Mama, hello. Interesting, Voodoo Kitchen. Lamp Keeper, shalom, Sister Kate. Lamp Keeper, I want you to see what's in my lap. I think you will get this. Can you see that? My daughter came back to our land and she brought some kittens with her, and she tried to get us to adopt one, and my husband kind of took to this one. So she's just had something to eat, and she's sitting there making biscuits in my lap. Hopefully she won't be too much of a distraction. Hey, Suze, evening, and wow, I'm gonna have to get this closer to me. Alicia Blanco, is that right? Shalom, E.E. Healy, hello. How are things up in the Adirondacks? How was your Sunday? Aw, they're hard to give up once you raise them from kittens. And these kittens were kind of adopted on a spur of a moment. My other daughter's cat had disappeared, and so they thought something had happened to it, and so this little kitten was to replace that one, and then my daughter's cat turned back up, so this one's kind of extra. Her name's Pasha, and she's actually a little sweetie kitten, but my husband and I very seldom own cats because we're kind of allergic to them. But when you live the way we do, a cat, especially one that will hunt, and there's no guarantee. Yes, I know, she's sleepy. No guarantee she'll be a hunter, but some of the other cats here on the property are hunters, so hopefully she'll learn from them, and then she'll help with the rodents, which we have plenty of. Anyway, live stream's not about the cat, but I thought you'd appreciate that. What is its name? Pasha, which apparently means little. Hey folks, thanks for joining We Tree. Good We Tree. I sent you an email and you got it and everything. So can you hit the like and share? Show some respect for this awesome channel. Oh my goodness. Makes me feel embarrassed. Hot, expecting a tornado until 10 p.m. Oh my gosh. That's got to be weird for your area, EE. I would think the Adirondacks don't expect tornadoes very often. I'm allergic to cats, dogs, and most plants, still garden and have pets. Right, and it, over the years I have not been as allergic to certain things as before, and I have heard that, maybe as you age your allergies aren't as acute, but also I think there's a mental part of it that if you, especially with cats, for me it was their fur. I would think about how soft and fluffy their fur was, and then my nose would run. So I stopped thinking about them in the same way, and I don't react. So I mean, it could be either thing. Yes, very unusual for us up here. EE, you need to be. Hey, Lynch Schley, how are you doing? Man, Yatahe. Yatahe. I know I got it wrong the last time, but there. Greetings to you, Lynch Schley. Good to see you. How are you doing? I know your community has made the national news now. hoping you guys are getting some aid for your issues down there. Um, yeah, EE, you need to be ready to flee or take shelter or something if it actually manifests itself there. So anyway, let's get into it. I'm not going to sit here and wait because time's a wasted. So the title of the live stream is The Business of Unrest. And what I was thinking is just like when I had the live stream about the volcanoes and things happen as a result of volcanoes, well, unrest is the same way. Civil or political unrest also has things that go on around it or causes that cause it. And then there's reactions to it. And obviously we're in, civil unrest right now. Some of our cities are having, months of protesting and riots in some of the cities. Some of our larger cities have had multiple shootings this summer, daily 60 people shot and so many people die. So there's definitely unrest going on. But at the same time, I'm reading a book about Alexander Hamilton, the book that the play is based on, because it is a really good biography. And in it, at the time that he's a young man, there's also civil unrest going on in the United States. The Revolutionary War is about to start, and the colonists are all upset, and there's Sons of Liberty burning people in effigy and so on. And so I wanted to touch on some of the things surrounding what goes on in the unrest. And in this particular case, the business aspect of it. So I'm going to jump around a little bit because I have my life experience and then the things I'm reading and videos and all that. But one of the first things that occurred to me related to this was when we were stationed on a fort. We were stationed at one of the first forts built west of the Missouri River. And when we were given a tour of the fort, there were very large wooden quarters that were for the generals, very famous generals. I think one of them might have been Custer and the other one was maybe his brother or something, who had been stationed at that fort. And right next to them is another really nice big wooden building. And I'm like, okay, and whose is this? Well, it wasn't any military person. It was the merchant who supplied that fort with, food and ammunition and everything. And his house was as big as a general's house. And I thought, whoa, isn't that kind of interesting? Because we're talking early 1800s. Most people who had huge houses in those days were either railroad owners or fur company owners. And this guy was the, quartermaster general, the supply guy for that military fort. And I thought, that's kind of interesting. And then the second point on this business of unrest talk, and are you guys making comments? I know when I talk, you don't always. Yat-a-T. Okay, I got it wrong. We have a basement for shelter. Westfield Forge. Hey, how you doing, brother? Okay, so the second point I wanted to do was in this biography of Alexander Hamilton, he just so happens to, at the age 13, become a clerk for a shipping company, like a merchant company. And he lives on St. Croix, out in the West Indies somewhere. And the biography goes into say about Alexander Hamilton that made him learn a lot of different things as a clerk in this, at a port. And ships are coming in with goods, and then the goods have to go on to, some store where they're sold or onto a different island or whatever. And so he, as a young man, had to learn all the little aspects of that, of, what the weather was and different countries and what their customs were. And when things arrive in port, certain condition, like you couldn't have grain coming in and it be moldy and then you sell that. It has to come in, you have to inspect it and make sure that it's made the voyage okay. And they give an example in the book of a load of mules, like 200 mules that were coming from somewhere like Spain through his port, and he had to inspect them and said, they're not in good enough shape, and then there's repercussions of that. And so as a young man, he learned all about that, business and trading and stuff. And then he gets involved in the war. And because he has this logistical experience, George Washington and other officers noticed and he started out as a cavalry officer, his unit was very organized. He had, their uniforms, because in those days officers paid for their own soldiers' uniforms. So he had their uniforms squared away. He had their equipment squared away. Everybody had the same pack and the same rifle and the same blanket. And he had read up on military discipline, and so his unit stood out to other units around him. And when George Washington saw him, it was brought to his attention because his artillery had done a good job. He tapped him to be like an aide de camp, and immediately Alexander Hamilton starts shaping up Washington's camp, because all the communication for the whole Continental Army is coming through him. Washington has to check off on everything, and he had several people employed, but what Alexander Hamilton had was that experience of organizing trade, ships worth of loads of stuff, and to catalog it and mark it and inspect it and then send it on to the next thing. And so he tapped Alexander Hamilton for his experience and his logistical ability, and he became that close with George Washington. And I thought, wow, isn't that kind of interesting? So the next step for Alexander Hamilton, and a step that we're all living in right now, is the politics come into it. Because when you're in charge of things like military supplies coming and going, and having to deal with different governments in the 13 colonies, and you have to deal with their attorney general or their quartermaster general or whatever, politics starts to come into the picture too. Just like politics is in our picture now, like our daily unrest is linked to politics. Hey, Red Tower! Shalom from the Missouri Ozarks, called ready. Good evening, all. Thanks for all your thumbs ups on Instagram. Over to Bus. Shalom. Okay, so you guys, if you're coming in right now, we're talking about the business of unrest. And when I say unrest, I mean civil unrest. And I'm linking it with politics, and I'm linking it with money also. So, another thought I had about political unrest is it has its own pattern. As I said, like with the volcano, and then you have the sky gets dark, and then crops don't grow well and people go hungry. There's like a whole slew of things. Well, there's kind of a theme with political unrest, at least in the United States, because in Alexander Hamilton's time, 1770s, revolution time frame, the political unrest, he was a college student. And he had a professor who was pro-British, and he also knew people who were pro-American. And it started, actions started to happen. People, I'm trying to remember if it was Nathan Hale. I think it's Nathan Hale does the Common Sense pamphlet, and then there are other writers in other, newspapers in New York City and Philadelphia who are writing pamphlets, and then Alexander Hamilton wrote a pamphlet. And as people's emotions are getting stirred up, actions start going on. He joins the militia. He starts training, like I said, a cavalry unit. But some of the things that happened in his time when they're having their protests against the British were statues were tumbled down. There was rioting in the streets. And there were people burned in effigy. You make this stuffed... like a jack and not that. What am I trying to say? It's the thing that keeps the crows out of the corn. It's not a jack. What is it? Anyway, you know what I'm talking about. Like you stuff clothes, and then you put a uniform on it so it looks like, say, the British mayor of your town or whatever, and then you burn that scarecrow. There you go, mock scarecrow. That's it. Not jack something. Scarecrow. It's like a scarecrow, except it's of your, political person, and then you hang that up and you burn it. So you're burning them in effigy. And so citizens were doing that stuff. And as a little teeny aside, because it's all part of one big picture, there was a comment, I think it's on page 70 of the book, where a British, I think it was General Howe, British generals, like one of his secretaries, was watching a riot. And they were stationed in New York City, and there were some stationed in Boston, British military units. And this secretary's watching these Americans to be doing their rioting, and he made a comment. There were many blacks in this riot of all different ages, as well as, merchants and sailors and whatever, farmers. And I thought, isn't it interesting? So these blacks that are there are as early American as any of the, people who were there at the same time. And they were rioting then, not rioting, but, protesting. They were politically active. They were protesting. And we are living in a time when they are protesting again. It's 250 years, give or take, since, the revolution to now. Is that right? 1775 to 1975 be 200 years, and then add, 25 and then another 20. So yeah, almost 250 years later, there's these, it's the same thing. That's why history is so fascinating. When you study it, you find out that yes, stuff does repeat, and there are themes, and there are things that go on, and they follow a pattern, and it's the same. Blacks then were free and slave, just like whites were bond servants and free, and just a whole big mix. And political unrest, protesting against the British, because everyone who lived in this colony knew they had rights under British law, and yet the British government was denying them their rights. Does that not sound kind of parallel to some of the things we're hearing these days? I thought so. Okay, so now I wanted to talk about the Continental Army, because here's another model, right? We've got this young, tiny little army, and they're going to take on a huge continental power. And one of the things Washington was worried about, seems like there's a paper that talks about the lifespan of an empire being about 250 years. Westhold Forge, I know you know what that paper might be. Sir John Glubb, etc. And it's relevant. I think it's relevant. You always look at things, but no dispersed funds yet. She's talking about our leaders can't agree where the money should go. We're having to do night patrols due to city gangs breaking into houses here in the country. We're a very hard target. Good. You need to be that hard target. Let them go somewhere else. Okay, so back to the Continental Army. Because unrest and money and the military sometimes, depending, can all be involved. If you have political unrest, there can be all these aspects going on. So the Continental Army has men from 13 states, right? They needed to get international support. And Alexander Hamilton said that when he was a young man. He's only in his 20s when this is going on. He said, we need the French and the Spanish to come to our aid. And he thought they would, and they did. They came to our financial aid. And that's where some of our ambassadors were. Ben Franklin was in England for a while, and then I think he went to France, and we sent somebody else, maybe John Adams or one of his sons or something, to Spain. You'll have to check it up, but yeah. Washington is in charge of that Continental Army. I said that already. And the suppliers to the Army suddenly become people who are going to make money in the U.S., right? Because up until then, all the trade, all the money happening in this colony of Britain went to Britain. Britain made money. They sent, we sent raw supplies to them. They made stuff out of it. They sent it back to the colony, and the colonists bought it. And Britain was, trading with all of Europe and using the colony as a supply, right? Cut us wood, send it to us. Grow cotton, send it to us. And so when the revolution is happening, the colonists now have to figure out a way to get money. So one of the first things they did was, we're going to stop sending our taxes to England. They no longer are representing our interests. They're mistreating us. We're going to stop sending our money. The second thing they were going to need to do is take their raw goods and start to try to sell them to somebody else. Hey, see if France will take our goods. See if Spain will take our goods. Shalom, David Campbell. So again, money, politics, and the military. But if you're a local supplier, if you're someone, and there was a guy in the United States, he was the only person who knew how to make a cannon, and he was actually a French bell maker. So they get this French bell maker to come to the colonies and start building cannons, and it's not the same science. So they built some and blew them up accidentally until they finally figured it out. But now his supplier of things for copper and iron, they're going to be making money. When there's civil unrest, there's money made and there's money lost. So how, if we look at the riots and the protests going on in the U.S. right now, we see the same thing. We see big companies like Target and like I said, the Mercedes dealership in LA and so on, they're losing some money. The rioters and the protesters, if they damage their store, if they steal things out of their store, if they set their store on fire, they lose money. So who's gaining money? Who's getting money during a protest? That's a really interesting thing to look at, because what happens is when the protest destroys part of the city, that real estate loses its value. It's one thing if you've got a store there and it works and the electricity's on and the door's open and it's air conditioned and you have a marked parking lot and restrooms. Your land is worth a whole lot more than if it's a burned out rubble. People with money before this now can buy that property for way less than they would have had to pay for it if that building was still intact. So there are people with money making money on these protests right now. And there are people like in the Chaz Chop area whose businesses got ruined, or for weeks they could not do any business because Chaz controlled the streets and they wouldn't let customers come in and wouldn't let businesses open. So that's a really interesting aspect of civil unrest. Okay. Shalom all, Aledwin Mayer, and hey, Christy B, shalom, and John Ray. Welcome. Okay, so I talked about the Continental Army. I talked about kind of how these things all relate to what we're doing right now. There's also a division when there's unrest. There is, and there was in Alexander Hamilton's time, and there is now. There were people who were pro-British, and he lived in New York City, and New York City for a while was the capital. And like I said, British troops came there, were sent there to, quell it, and it had all of like 25,000 citizens at the time. It was one of the largest cities in the U.S., but 25,000 citizens is not a lot. And they sent almost that many British troops to occupy New York. So you get pro-British businesses like taverns and print shops, and then you get pro-American businesses, taverns and print shops and so on. And the civil unrest affected them, especially the pro-British, because after the Boston Tea Party, there was a New York Tea Party also. And some of the citizens trashed some of those businesses, forced one guy to have to leave town, and then he came back later and actually spied on the British for the Americans. So he kind of was pro-British at first, and then he turned. It's in that series called Turn. He's the tavern owner, and I don't know if Turn's on Netflix or Prime Video, but it's a really good look at spies and Washington's. He was running all kinds of spies at the time, intelligence gathering and things like that during the Revolutionary War era. So you've got those guys, and then you've got the pro-American guys. And if you were in a pro-British neighborhood, they may come trash your business if you're the only pro-American guy there. So the same kind of thing happens in Chop Chaz, right? In these protests in the city. If especially in LA, man, so many of the upscale businesses were trashed by the protesters. Windows broken, stuff stolen out of the store, some of them set on fire. Your politics and where you stand when there's civil unrest can really affect how things go on in your neighborhood. So I thought that was really interesting. Okay, here's some other benefits. Who else is benefiting right now with our civil unrest? What do you guys think? Hey, Rick Ballard. Shalom. Who do you think is monetarily benefiting from this civil unrest in our country right now? And I know you guys are going to, some of you are probably thinking, Bill Gates, because he's going to make a vaccine. Wee Tree Bonsai says China. She's probably right, but that's not who I'm aiming for, but I get it. I mean, where are we buying all these gloves and masks from, right? The political class, or as I like to call them, our overlords. They probably are, and I talked about that a bit. The protesters have to be getting money from somewhere. Protesters too, but let's think a little bit differently. My husband told me he tried to buy some ammunition, which is totally legal in the United States. You can buy ammunition, but he can't find any. Do you think Remington and Winchester and Wolf and all those ammunition companies are making some money right now? And it's not because they did anything. I'm not saying I suspect them of doing anything. George Soros is funding many, right? But if you look at ammunition companies right now, they are sold out. Firearms manufacturers are sold out. Prep gear companies are making big money right now and have been for a while since the turn, like Y2K. Y2K started a prepper deal, but it's gaining momentum as things are happening, as the civil unrest is happening and the food shortages. When I think about, let's say, Black Rifle Coffee comes out of, Afghanistan. Experienced soldiers come home and make a coffee company. But there are so many military guys who have come back and opened their companies for prepping or prepping gear or firearm stuff or instruction. And I think all those guys are doing pretty well right now because people are kind of scared. Self-storage is booming. People are having to move because they can't pay their mortgages, so they're selling their houses. Another video that we recently saw was a bunker guy, a guy who makes bunkers for people. Will come and build you one on your property. He's doing a lot of business right now. So unrest, it's kind of like a two-edged sword, right? Unrest, there are people losing money. There are people who are losing their house because of COVID and can't pay their mortgages and whatever. And yet there are people who are doing business who are rolling in the dough. I'm sure Mountain House, that freeze-dried food company, is probably rolling in the dough because people are looking for, the store, what is it called? The food saver vacuum deal where you take all the air out of the bag and you can keep your food. Or Oregon Berry says, hopefully Viking preparedness. We're not selling anything right now, Oregon Berry. EMP equipment companies are selling like crazy. Seed companies, yes, perfect, yes, absolutely. Because people see food shortages going on, all those heirloom seed companies and just seed companies in general are probably making money hand over fist. We bought some online, like, organic kind of food from Azure, and Azure was, sent us the little thing that said, we're having a high volume, we may not be able to get to your order right away, but we'll do our best, etc., etc. They're probably making a lot of money. So you see the way it all ties together and how it can be bad and good. I don't begrudge people like a seed company making money if people want to buy seeds right now. I think that's fantastic, because when times are really good, the seed companies probably don't do as well. It's kind of an I would think, versus when the times are hard and they've got that valuable commodity and now people want it and need it. Supply demand, right? So, well, where's my paperwork, you guys? This cat and everything, and I'm trying to drink my drink. There we go. Stuck it in the flower pot. So I found that interesting. I found it interesting that it happened 250 years ago with Alexander Hamilton and like the bell guy and the ammunition people and, uniform people who had to make uniforms and shoes for the Continental Army and everything. Those guys were probably doing a pretty good business. There, we talked about that. And we talked about rich people, right, buying real estate when unrest happens and it gets, people's real estate, the mom and pop businesses get destroyed. Someone comes in and buys that for cheap. And they make money and they accumulate property. Something else I thought was really interesting on the theme of business during this unrest. Did you guys see about, I can't find a freezer for my van at all. My mag is looking for me while I'm on the road, right? Pastor told me that too. Nobody can find freezers. Nobody can find canners. Suddenly canners, which were everywhere. Walmart used to sell the water bath canners at the end of the season for $10 a piece. Nobody can find them anymore because people are scrambling. They are looking for things like canners and freezers to store their food. And it's creating that supply-demand shortage. But I was getting back to, did any of you hear about the congressional hearings on the 4 big businesses who were coming to have to answer to Congress about how much money they're making during this pandemic? I found that really interesting. At least 2 of them, because I didn't look it up. I was lazy. You guys might know the other 2. One of them was Amazon, and the other one was Facebook. They were having to come to Congress and explain why, in a time when there's shortages and a pandemic and everything, why are they making all this money? Did you guys hear about that? Finally a live stream, Sandra Rice, yay! We have 4 heaters. Pressure cookers are hard to find as well. Exactly, Lynch Schley, yep. We have 4 inherited canners. You're lucky, lamp. Canning jars are hard to find. We're at 4 corners and only 1 store had some after checking all state borders. Exactly. One can always look at thrift stores and like garage sales and things, but as far as them coming from, like you said, a store, they're running into some shortages too. Same thing. People are buying them because they're going to can what they're growing in the gardens. Let's see. History is repeating itself. That's why you want to look at history, Todd Hamill. That's why you want to see the precedent set from before so you can kind of deal with what's going on. Overall living. We've been canning like crazy, or actually doing it right now. Overall living, you guys have come so far. Your gardening and your food preservation and stuff, you've just been doing great. And if I weren't doing this, I would probably be making pickles right now because I have some cucumbers that I can do. We can't find lids. That's one of those things that Pastor wanted us to have some lids because the lids are the part you can't reuse. And there are reusable lids called Tattler lids. They were expensive. But they were made to be reused. And some of your options, if you can't find any lids, is, oh man, I'm trying to remember. Canning wax. You may still be able to find that. You can actually put wax on top of the jar for some things. I'm not saying for everything. And then pickling. You can actually pickle things in a crock. And it's more like fermenting it. And then you don't actually have to like can it kind of thing. You know, sauerkraut and so on. Okay. The niche markets will dry quickly with the depression. Exactly, because niche is not big enough, right? I'm back, had to put potatoes in the canner. See, hey, Susan's canning right now. Earl's daughter. Yes, I watched the entire hearing. I think I felt stupider after. Earl's daughter, do you remember the other two who were there? It was Amazon and Facebook and who else? Okay. So happy to join you. Hey, Chasing Life. Yay, I'm glad you got to sit in on it too. Hey, Sheepdog Patriot. Shalom. Are you guys moved now? We'll see if we can get some. I got my lids from the Amish store. I bought a sleeve of each side. Smart. Treadle Sewing Nana. Wife just said they have wax at Harps today. Very good. So you probably will want to get that. Everyone's doing pretty good. Google and Apple. Right. Google and Apple were two companies there. And wasn't it Facebook and Amazon? Apple and Google. The side of dirt so getting you. Took much longer than expected, but it's done. Hallelujah. Yes. Okay. Google. Man, see how quickly I forgot that? Apple, Google, Apple, Amazon, and Facebook. And Congress said, why are you guys making money? And I think they may be looking at a monopoly kind of situation with them and possibly breaking them up like they did to the Bell phone company. But isn't it interesting in a time of unrest? But for Amazon, at least to me, it makes sense because they have a delivery system set up so that if I can't find lids in my local store, I can go on Amazon, and Amazon is sourcing them from, Lord knows where. And they can get them to me in less than a week if I've got Amazon Prime, whereas if I go to my local store, they're like, I don't know, could be 2 weeks. So of course they're making money. And whoever thought a book company would end up being like that, a conglomeration. I mean, I'm surprised they didn't drag Walmart in there. I think those 4 companies are probably giving Amazon or Walmart a run for their money. Amazon, Facebook, Google, Apple. There you go, Jeffrey. Thank you. Miss Lovely Dudley, shalom. I see people ordering from Amazon. Can you even order from the rest? Can you order from Apple? What's Apple selling too besides phones? Are they just making so much money because they are selling phones? And Google too, right? How is Google making that money? Is it just because they're the biggest search engine? Well, the government shut down most mom and pop shops. Many went out of business. That's a good point. We ordered clear gel from Amazon because we couldn't find it anywhere else. That's a really good point. With mom and pop stores shut down by the pandemic, only the big stores are working right now. Good point. Shalom, Sister Kate. Okay, so there's a couple other things going on in our country that I found really interesting. And I had it right on the same topic as the congressional hearings, but it's not necessarily congressional. Bill Gates is being... Now, my daughter says, it's because they'll get more views, Mom. That's why they're doing it. But actual news agencies like CNN, who run stories about a vaccine and the vaccine being developed, will have Bill Gates' picture on their story. Almost whether he's actually in the story or not, but they're also kind of presenting him as an expert. Like Bill Gates says that the pandemic's going to go on for 3 more months. Bill Gates says that, a vaccine could come any time now. He's not a medical expert. And that kind of makes me very leery of why he's getting his face out there so much linked with this. Is he supposed to be getting set up as a hero of the pandemic because his company is going to make a vaccine, and then that's going to segue us right into the money aspect, because I've heard many, many people already online say that he's going to develop the vaccine and get that much more money. Fauci is being paid by Bill Gates. Paid advertising, yes, Stephen, that's what I think for Google. Now, see, people have said Fauci's being paid by Bill Gates, but I didn't find independent sources saying that. The pandemic video said that, but pandemic is fake news. It's not real. All this, that woman, that microbiologist they had in there, made a bunch of claims that aren't true about herself and about her relationship with Bill Fauci and how he imprisoned her and a bunch of other nonsense. So I'm not, I don't think Fauci's being paid by Bill Gates. Now maybe they sit on the board of some organization together. That's a possibility. But Fauci's a federal employee. So Google is Android. Okay. All right, let's see Earl's daughter. Whom? Apple also sells apps. Lots of bored people. Google holds the monopoly of advertisement. They direct who buys what and from whom. There you go. Good job. Yes, that makes sense. I agree. Okay, so I didn't like Gates being touted as an expert because he's not. Even if he did, a documentary on pandemic, that does not make him a medical expert. He's really good at making software that will spy on you and that he can gather information out of your computer. He's really good at that, but I don't like that about it. And then the money aspect with our civil unrest going on at the same time is who's going to come out with that vaccine. Which company? And they've got like 7 of them that are all working on it. Moderna and, oh, you guys know Johnson & Johnson, I think, is one. Apple brought in unfair app approval and associated financial return to developers. There you go. All right. But yeah, the vaccine money is going to be a huge thing because all the countries in the world have this pandemic. And even if Americans don't want to take the vaccine, that doesn't mean worldwide they won't want it. And companies like China, if they buy it, or Russia or India with huge populations, are going to spend a lot of money getting that vaccine. So that's a money aspect of a pandemic that we're going to see unfold right before our eyes. If you all don't have a mag yet, get one set up ASAP. You can. We do night-day patrols with our neighbors so we can all tend to our homesteads knowing someone has our 6. Gotta go. Shalom, y'all. Shalom, Lichley. It will be a Gates Foundation affiliated company. A company called Gabby. Right? But we're going to see it. We're going to see. And following the money is how you follow the power and control and who's doing what, who's pulling what strings. So something else that we're seeing, and it just came out recently to us because we know a few people who do this. A lot of people have lost income, right? A lot of people have been told don't work, stay home, so they don't. The government gives them, the unemployment or whatever, but they've lost their principal income. And like you guys have already said, mom and pop businesses have also been shut down, and some of them have been forced to close because, their income coming in on a daily basis was how they were living. But what I've seen a rise of, which I was like, maybe this is a thing, is pallet sales. And I had not really heard of it before, but we know a person who recently has been looking into that. Shutting down Golden Corral. How do we get cheap steak now? Wow, that's okay. Wait, it's been a very nice and mostly relaxing weekend here, Mrs. Allegheny. There 117 yesterday. Good gracious, woman, that's insane. How are we going to get cheap steak if Golden Corral shuts down, right? So I talked about pallet sales. We will get back to pallet sales, but I see opportunity. Golden Corral shuts down. Let's just say, your mom and pop store on the corner, which was a 5 and dime kind of store, shuts down. Lots of things shut down. And again, I've talked about the pandemic. If it follows the model of 1918, it's going to last for at least another year. right? So for like a 2-year period, everything comes to a halt. But as Donald Trump keeps saying, and he's a business guy, our economy is going to come roaring back. Once people are told, okay, things are safe, those who got the vaccine are, have gotten the vaccine, and those who haven't, but those who've been sick, survived, and whatever, and now there's some immunity and so on, you can go back to your favorite restaurant, you can go to a mall or whatever, you can go shop now. People who've been shut up that long are going to be busting at the seams to get out there. They're going to want to go buy stuff. They're going to want to, get an outfit or a TV or the latest phone or whatever. And business, I think business, because when you have destruction and everything, pandemic, unrest, and whatever, there is a period of rebuilding. Just like when Katrina comes through and destroys, most of New Orleans, the construction people move right in and they start rebuilding. And that's where money gets made, right? It's opportunity. Just shut down in a restaurant dining plus all bars and clubs through August, right? So when the bar can open back up a year from now, the guys who love and gals who love going to a bar are going to go to bars. They're going to do it. People who like to have their car washed every week are going to go back to car washes. And if there's a car wash open in town, it's going to get business. So I see it as an opportunity. But you have to already know, decide, start working towards how you are going to step into that. If that little mom and pop store closed down, then maybe you start going to these pallet sales and buying some supplies of things like toothbrushes and hairbrushes and kids' toys and whatever, and you store them in a storage facility, and as soon as you're allowed to open up, and you go to that mom and pop store real estate agent, whoever owns that little building on the corner right now that's shut down, whether it's the mom and the pop or their real estate agent, you say, hey, as soon as this thing's done, I want to rent that store. And I will give you a month's rent up front, just so you will hold that building for me. And as soon as you get the go, you take all your pallet stuff in there, you put it on the shelves, you put your signs up, you get your your little calculator thing ready, and you open your doors, and people are going to come in and they're going to buy this stuff that they haven't been able to shop for. And so I see it as an opportunity. If you've always wanted to open a restaurant, and now you've got a year and a half to get yourself ready for it, as soon as you get permission to do it, you open your restaurant. You know what I'm saying? Like, as much as unrest causes people a loss of income, it can also be an opportunity for others. And I also think about when the World War II veterans came home. They've been gone for years, and they come back to the U.S., and they're healthy young men who've, been tested in battle, so they have confidence, and they get ideas, and they get a VA loan, and bam, they open up their pancake shop or their mechanic's shop or whatever. I think it's a source of opportunity. And I want to talk about the pallet sale thing just because I now know at least 2 people who are doing it. And I think in some of the cases, you don't always see everything that's in the pallet. People are buying this stuff sight unseen. It's almost like Christmas, you spend a certain amount of money, and you get to open this great big box and see what's in it. And then most people, I think, who are doing it are reselling or trying to stock up on something. So have you guys seen this, witnessed it, experienced it for yourself? We've been looking into a local bulk produce sale. Various farmers bring unsold items, and they are boxed and sold for a great price. Looking forward to preserving and storing what we get. See? It's a thing. The vets started ski resorts after World War II. Tony and Melissa, yes, there we go. They have seen this thing. I think it's a thing, and I think it has something to do with us all being shut up in the pandemic and the shortages of items, as well as the desire to stock up on items. It's almost like when the the storage unit sales became, a History Channel show. Like, who's going to bid on this storage unit? And we think this is in it, but we don't know. And, there's a challenge there, and there's a little bit of a gamble, and so on. I just think it's another effect of what's happening with us right now. If Trump does not get elected, this will resolve within 6 months to a year. There will be no reason for the control. If Trump does not get elected, this will resolve within 6 months to a year. There will be no reason for the control. Palette stuff, I love it. I don't know. I know Trump is trying to make the pandemic part of his re-election campaign. I think the pandemic's going to be 6 months to a year no matter who's in office, because that's how the last pandemic ran. We've been looking, oh, that's right. There's a store in my area that sells pallets like that. Exactly, Westhold Forge. And for some people, it's a real opportunity. They buy things they know will sell, and they resell them, and they make a profit on it. And I think people like that are going to do that anyway. They have that skill, they have that knowledge, they understand what they're doing. But I also think there's probably some people who just want the thrill. Maybe. $12 for 70 pounds of produce, that is a good price, Chasing Life. That's hard to argue. Oh, in Vino Veritas, I'm going to block you. Okay, yeah, you said that somewhere else, and I disagreed with you on that, and this is not the place to do that. So, Weetree, can you handle that for me, please? Thank you. Is it also sight unseen at the store near you? Where is this? I'd be interested. They're wrapped in clear plastic, and they put all the good stuff on the outside and fill the middle up with so-so things. Have you been there, Westhold? Most storage auctions are online now. When I first took over my facility, I had a unit sell for $960. They found 3 paintings that sold for a total of $3,000. That's pretty cool. The pandemic ends November 3rd. If only, right? I mean, if it's not a real pandemic, it certainly could, but I think it is a real pandemic. And wasn't it, what? Lamp Keeper? Wasn't your, thank you, Weetree, for blocking him. Wasn't it your stepfather who just passed away from COVID? I mean, I hate to bring that up. It's a very painful memory for you, no doubt. But I mean, I think the pandemic is a real thing. So if it follows the last one, then it's at least in another year. And when I say follows, I mean acts like. Chasing Life. We got him at the same time, Weetree. Ugh. That guy. He's obviously a Catholic, and he's trying to argue doctrine with me, and I'm just not having it. Just not going to have it. That actually reminded me, I'm watching a series on Henry VIII, Tudors, and I'm sure it has something to do with the writer of the series. But the politics at that time were real, where Henry and the Catholic Church were at odds with each other. He wanted to marry a certain woman. The Catholic Church had already done a special thing for him to marry his first wife, who was his brother's widow. And so there was a lot of machinations going on. And as I'm listening to the writer of this particular one, I'm thinking, there's just so much wrong with what the church is basing their decision-making on. There's just so much wrong, confusing God's law with quote-unquote Roman law, right? God did not care what Caesar was doing. He really did not care. He didn't care what any of the pagan, the Carthaginians were doing. He didn't care what the Jebusites were doing. He knew they were worshiping false gods. He's like, I don't care about that. I care about my people. I care about what they are doing. And so they were to adhere to his laws and also do what they had to do within the society they were in. Yeshua tells, I think it's one of the apostles, he says, render unto Caesar what is Caesar's. Like, you're not to be a criminal under their rule, and you're also supposed to follow my father's rule. And yet the British thing in their church, and just, all the things where people could only, only the clergy could read the Bible, and they had to read it in Latin, and it wasn't allowed to be given in English, and priests couldn't marry. That's not biblical. There's so much going on with that. And it makes my head explode. Because that's, Henry VIII was in like the 1500s. That's 500 years ago. That's 500 years of the church just misconstruing this word and misguiding people. It drives me nuts. And it happened longer than that. All right. I know people who are being affected, so it's not fake, said Tony. No, it wasn't me. My father-in-law went to the hospital, but it turned out he was just severely dehydrated. Okay, good. It was someone, I thought she was something 119, maybe? Maybe an Instagram, or maybe a follower, a commenter on my videos. I don't remember, but she said her father-in-law passed away from COVID, and I was just like, man, that stinks. Oh, Deborah's got the tornado watch in the Adirondacks. Ugh. I was aware of positive cases at my hospital well over a month before my previous state announced its first case. Scary stuff. All right. When he got out, he said he was glad he didn't have the cobra. What's the... Oh, for corona? He thought it was called money. Inversion layer says money equals control equals manufactured hysteria. Right? Or manufactured protests. Or stirring up people who legitimately want to protest, stirring them up and giving them an avenue to do it. Go do this thing, and yet infiltrating into them people who then get violent and destroy property. And that causes civil unrest. It's real, but it's not as bad as the government want everyone to think it is. It becomes real. It's bad when it affects you. Pandemic is very real, and I totally agree with you on the way it will play out like the Spanish flu. I think 2 to 3 years, and I, a nurse, right? That's me, Lane Camper 119, but it wasn't me. I don't have a stepfather. Seems I remember hearing someone saying that too, though. Okay, so it's just my poor memory, but somebody on there said that. Yeah, so money, civil unrest, actions, reactions. And I, like Pastor says, and other people say, look, it's just poor little kitten fell asleep right on me. I don't think we're done yet. And some of the people I know are saying like 2020 has just been an awful year. Like just, ugh. It starts bad. It starts with fires and locusts, and then the pandemic hits, and it just keeps going. Business, no. School, no. Shopping, no. Stay home. Shortages of food. Shortages of supplies. Now riots and civil unrest. Murders. Chicago's gone crazy. 60 people getting shot a night. It creates an opportunity. It creates an opportunity for people, like I said, when it's over. People with money buying real estate that has been devalued. People who can produce something being able to start a business and get more power. People like Amazon being super powerful. Google, the apps, like you guys said, people have to stay home. So Netflix and Prime Video are probably doing really well because people want to sit home and you get bored, and so you watch your series on one of those channels, or you order, like we said, Westhold Forge said, and I said, like, if I can't find stuff anywhere else, I may order it from somewhere online. I said Amazon, but I've ordered from lots of different places. Our farm store is probably doing really good because they're selling seeds and tools for working in a garden and chicks and all that food storage kind of canned goods and all that. It's also making people restless and causing people to act sort of wacky, to say the least, not to mention mental health issues with isolation and depression. Layman's, I bet Layman's making a killing. We have all that Amish off-griddy stuff, and they used to make it, I think, on the Amish communities but I think because of the huge demand, a lot of that stuff is getting made by China. I don't know if they're contracting China or if they said, China, make this stuff and we'll buy it or whatever. But yeah, I'm sure they're doing really well too. What did Chasing Life say? Let me go back. Yeah, people, mental illness, wackiness. There's some seriously funny videos online about songs that, my Corona and all kind of stuff like that. I did talk about John Krasinski did like 6 or 8 newscasts called Some Good News because there's so much bad news, major channels just reporting stuff to stress you out. And so he did like his own version of news in his own house and wore a coat and tie and had like signs that his little daughters made. And he just found stories off the net of, people doing good things. And they got millions of hits because people need good news as well as all this gloom and doom. They need to hear that, neighborhoods got together and helped out a neighbor in need, or their fire station, local firefighters use their ladder truck to help a woman see her mother who's in the nursing home and she hasn't seen her for 2 or 3 months. So they put her on the basket and they lifted it up to the room where her, like 84-year-old mother is sitting there and they get to see each other. Or the mother-daughter duo who made themselves these kind of bubble outfits so they could hug because they weren't allowed to touch. So they made complete outfits from head to toe. The both of them got in it. They got to hug each other. They hadn't hugged each other in weeks. Some good news. And it's so popular. And people just really grateful that it wasn't all just gloom and doom. And now I think NBC News or CBS News said they're going to possibly do a segment at the end of their broadcast now that's called Some Good News. Because it is lonely, it is stressful, it is kind of weird and wacky being in a pandemic. There hasn't been one in 100 years. 100 years. There's probably nobody alive now who was alive during the last one, or if there are, they're very old. Mrs. Hermit Hill watched a cute video of 2 dogs praying before they ate. Laugh out loud, right? And the internet was big that way anyway. I comment on it when if I get a video that has, 300 views, I'm thrilled. A cat falling in a pool video will get 20 million views, and that was before the pandemic, right? I mean, we're desperate. Layman actually owns Aladdin lamps. Excuse me, interesting. Because I know Aladdin probably was an independent company, but I mean, maybe at some point they said, you know what? We've made the money we want. We'll sell it to you. You guys make them. You're our biggest customer. They can be expensive, but a great place to find things otherwise difficult to find, especially items related to preparedness, even things that are hard to find on Amazon. You're talking about Layman's? Their prices went way up, though. When we used to buy from them, they were like a pretty good deal. And now you pay out the nose for some of their stuff. Layman's, yeah. What you doing? All right. That was my thing. That was my talk. The Business of Unrest. So now we can open it up to whatever questions, comments you guys want to make. That's Pasha. That's the one who's purring in my lap right now. Fell asleep on me. Shout out to the awesome mods here. If you don't say so yourself. But no, you guys did a great job with Vino Veritas. I managed to pick up a dehydrator. Dehydrators, I'm telling you, they're awesome. You can dehydrate so many things, and dehydrated food weighs nothing. It's so easy to store. Some candy jars and cast iron pans on Facebook Marketplace. Just have to watch prices. Makes me laugh when I see 4 jars for $25. There's an opportunity there, though. If you could buy a pallet of jars, because someone we know bought a pallet of jars for $75, but they weren't, I'm sorry, they weren't mason jars. They were candle jars. But if you could get, 2 dozen jars that you don't care about, I could sell them for $25, you're going to make $100 or $200. Have you had civil unrest by you guys? Not near. The last time we were anything like that, it was not right here. We went somewhere and saw a protest, but it didn't get violent. It's just people, you're stating their First Amendment right. Yes, great job, mods. I saw a pallet of jars, a bit much, and no place to store them. I have a dehydrator, had to put it in storage during my kumpf process. They're great, especially if it's a solar dehydrator, so you don't have to pay for all that electricity, because you have to run them for a while. Weetree is the greatest of all moderators. The OG, so to speak. I learned from the best. She is pretty wonderful. But I appreciate any moderators. You see how incompetent I am at handling things. I was trying to take care of that guy, and I was getting nothing. And I've touched people just to see their comment and wound up putting them in timeout. Overall Living says, I need to build a solar dehydrator. Brother, you absolutely should build one, because you have the skills, and it will make your life a little bit easier. If you are not dehydrating things right now and you're, a plug-in dehydrator, like I said, I dehydrate things in my cars. I mean, it's that easy. Can the mods get a raise? Yeah, you can get a raise. Same raise I get. What are you doing? Little stinker. We've been dehydrating on the, wait a minute, on the porch outside. It's faster and helps keep the house cool. Well, there you go. It'll be even cooler if it's a solar one out in the yard. I earn money from apps to get my big ticket prepping items. I'm 1,000 points away from having a Walmart gift card. Going to buy a food saver with it. Awesome. Good job. Mods work for free, folks, so tell them thank you. All that is compliance with the government mandates. I will not comply. If I want to see or hug someone, I'm going to, and woe be to anyone who tries to stop me. You have that right, RJ. I'm nervous about all my canning supplies along with everything else arriving in the pods. Who knows what shape things will be in, but I tried my best to pack carefully, right? That's always one of the stresses of moving, is your stuff packed up, and was it done tightly, and was it, did you put enough paper in and around it, and was it shook and or whatever during the move? Like, is it going to show up intact? So I pray your stuff does. As Bear calls it, the moderator is a band hammer. I need to find some plans for a solar dehydrator and oven. My husband likes to build things. I don't know where you get plans for it, but our friend Ozark's brother Jerry, he has a YouTube channel, has a video up about a solar dehydrator that he made himself. And if you're welcome to go check it out. It's basically a black box. It can be made from wood. The one I have has wood, and then the inside is plastic. with a glass thing that goes over top of the box, and then a kind of reflector shield, which I don't know what it's made. It's probably aluminum. It's lightweight, but I mean, seriously, you could use aluminum foil over cardboard that directs and reflects the sun around, but it directs it into that box, and because it's black, it creates heat. And the pot that you cook in it is also black, so it also absorbs that sunlight. Um, I'm sure you can probably find plans online. It really, you can do it. He did it, and his worked. So we were just blessed someone gave us one. Need to find some plants. Oh, yep. My little brother just bought a house. He and his wife are pretty much unarmed, so I'm fixing that. He has to come out and get some learning on it before I give it to him. He is in his own for ammo. Well, he's blessed that you can help him out, Westhold. And I'm glad he got a house. That's cool. We built an amazing solar dehydrator for $50. Two Wild Onions Homestead said. And Two Wild Onions Homestead, you have a YouTube channel, right? Did you do a video on that? I got almost $300 in other apps that I will use for an Excalibur dehydrator, lamp keeper. So when you say apps, like what do you mean? Is it like something you earn points through the app by buying certain things? And as far as an Excalibur dehydrator goes, we had a similar one, and my only problem with it was it took a lot of power. And to dehydrate some things, it may take you 24 hours. That's why I like the solar dehydrator and using vehicles. It's so much cheaper. It really is. And you don't have to worry about the temperature and turning it on and turning it off and all that other stuff. I'm in Rockford, Illinois. We've been getting overflow from Chicago. Our police are still being our police, though. No defunding here. Well, I'm glad to hear it. And when you say you're getting overflow, what do you mean? Are you getting people moving to Rockford from Chicago because they don't like the violence? Food savers are awesome. I raise in prayer, okay for you guys. Adnir, hey, how you doing? A raise in prayer, okay for you guys. I don't see why not. Thanks, Mod. Blessing for your time. Praise Yah. An American Homestead has a good dehydrator also. Don't know anything about that. Used a shredder for papers. Used it as packing materials for storage. That's smart. Hi, Sister Kate. I'm late. How's everything? Lone Star Living. It's good. Basically, the live stream, I mean, you can obviously go back when it's a video. We talked about civil unrest, having a historic pattern. Drew a few examples in the Revolutionary War and so on. I could have also talked about, I did a little bit, Henry VIII's time. And money, the business of unrest. How people lose money, some people make money, follow the money, that sort of thing. So, good to see you, and your homestead is pretty impressive. We did do a video. Okay, I can recommend Two Wild Onions Homestead. I would say go watch the video. I went over every night checking on them, but our cops are on it. Yay, Lynn. Your do-it-yourself dehydrator is very cool, Sister Kate. It's a nice big one. I've been able to dry some seed pods here outside due to no humidity. Pretty excited about that. Been here over a month now. Moved off-grid a month ago and working on our little cabin, Gather and Grow. We've been planning this move for 4 years. We have gravity-fed water from a spring and a solar water heater for bathing. Oh, that's cool. How does your solar water heater work? Is it like a, what do you call it? One of those like frames that has the dark tubing and the water runs through it and the sun, it's painted black and the sun heats it up? Oh, for the mods. Okay. All right, Adnir. Nice. Phone apps that I earn money with. 3 are scanning apps. Then 1 I do audits at a store. I have 2 that I scan receipts. Well, hey, I probably just put her in timeout. I hope I didn't. I have 2 that I scan receipts and earn points. I also have a gas app that gives me money when I buy gas. Well, cool, Lamp Keeper. You sound very modern. 2 wild onion sums I just subbed, so I will remember to check it out. Thanks. Awesome. Prepper's resource. Had a deleted message by WeTree. Okay, not sure what's going on there, but I'm sure there's something. That's very cool. Lamp Keeper, we've been able to continue with store audits. Moved here over the last 20 years, and some of the gang members have been visiting. Ugh, I'm sorry to hear that. Oh, okay. They were messing around. I usually go early in the morning before work. Just have to wear a mask in Wally World. Okay. All right. Anything else you guys want to talk about? We've seen people talk about their gardens and their canning. What are you guys doing to entertain yourselves? What are you doing for fun? So, I'm not sure if just gangs or Antifa from the BLM riots. Right? It's probably a little bit of all of them. Anything else you guys want to talk about? Sister Kate, what are your thoughts on the school year? I know that most schools are starting online. Do you think that will transition to full-time back to school this year? I know it's something that the government is a proponent of. What's her name? DeVos or Betsy DeVos or whatever her name is advocating all the kids go back to school. I've already said it in videos before. I think it's a horrible idea. Just because they said kids don't seem to get COVID is bad, and they would be able to do it safely. Because I homeschooled my kids, I think homeschool is the best idea, and I think homeschoolers are an example that homeschooling your kids at your house actually is not mental abuse. Your kids will be fine. And I think for all of them to be home with their parents for a year would actually be a very memorable experience for them. And I think maybe after that, depending on what the pandemic does, like I said, it's probably going to be another year after that, then maybe look at actually having people in classrooms. I think online learning makes a lot of sense right now, and it gives you a lot of freedom. So that's kind of as far as I've thought about it. Shalom, y'all. Overall living. We have a 30-gallon water tank we salvaged out of a trailer, wrapped in black plastic, hooked up to a hose. It's pretty primitive, but it works. Well, Gather and Grow, we're even more primitive. We just put black, dishwashing pans out in the sunlight, and they get warmed up, and we just cup water over ourselves to bathe. And I think it's easy. It's super easy. And we enjoy it because we don't have to haul the water. I'll be right back, you guys. My dogs opened the door and the flies are getting in the house. Bad dog. Go. Okay. Here I come. Oh. All right. Whoa. Let's talk about religious intolerance. You go first. We have choice between in-person and virtual. My boy is staying home. I'm with you. I'm a lunch lady at a school, and we still don't know what we're doing. Gather and Grow, I believe that. I mean, it's a really difficult decision to make. Been working out and target practice, getting ready for a garage sale. Smart. How is our garden doing, Sister Kate? Our garden is, it's never as productive as I want it to be. We had a couple of weeks of no rain and really high temperatures, and so that kind of scorched a good deal of it. I have like 2 potato plants growing. I've got some tomatoes. They're doing okay. I'm not going to be able to can like 50 quarts of tomatoes this year because the bugs are just terrible every year. Brussels sprouts are still alive, and I'm hoping if I can keep them alive until the temperature starts cooling down, then they will winter over and they'll be good. I've got maybe a dozen carrots that survived. It's just, we depend on the rain for watering, and so when it doesn't rain, it can be really hard. Now, the greenhouse, I can actually take you out there. Maybe that'd be fun for y'all. I can walk out there. The greenhouse is actually full of the passion fruit that grows wild here. And if you watched any of my garden videos in the past, you know I didn't even know what they were. I thought they were some kind of weird weed, and I let my goats eat them the first year we were here. But when someone told us like it's a passion fruit, then I was like, oh well, let's see. Here's the tomato, some of them in the above ground raised bed thing, and they're doing okay. But I had to use some 7 Deaths on them because the hornworms were so bad. And my Brussels sprouts, I don't know if you've seen them, they're in awful shape because of the cabbage worm caterpillars and harlequin bugs. Like you can see the harlequin bugs on there right now. Little black and red doodads. They're awful. But I'm hoping between me coming out and squishing those guys and spraying them, that the plants will live long enough to get through the winter. So here's the greenhouse, and there's the passion fruit. Am I getting that in the picture? All up in there. None of it's ripe yet. It's getting close. But they grow that way naturally. We put the greenhouse framework up because we intended to cover it. You know that too if you watch my videos. And I still haven't made, the framework for the ends of it. But those things started growing up just because, you know, it's something tall. The vines, we've got like 5 different kind of vines here, and they just go for whatever's tallest. That's some of the other tomatoes that were planted on the ground, and the hornworms and then the stink bugs were terrible on them. But we've gotten a few, and they taste great, and I love tomatoes, so I'm really happy if I get any in a year. So there. I'm homeschooled for 12 years, the best option. I've seen hot water stoves where they wrap copper. 7 a.m. in Thailand, Gordon. Well, I just showed you part of our passion fruit. I hope you... Gordon Tickle. Pastor Joe says hi, Gordon. It's 7 o'clock here too. Are we 12 hours different? See, my tomatoes are still growing well, but I think I mildewed my potatoes. Yeah, we had that mildew too come here and kill the turnips. I did get greens off of them. I have not tried to dig my turnips up yet, so they may be in there, but they went to seed, so they're probably not very big. It's a struggle. Do you think that your garden crops land benefit from Shemitah year? Have you seen improvements this year after letting the land rest? We've seen improvements, and we've also seen like some of the weeds went nuts. And I think you probably can weed, but we just sort of got into the not really doing any gardening mode. And so we didn't really control them. And this year I'm working really hard on them. But I know it was good for us to not have the pressure of that on our shoulders. And there was enough produce that comes from perennial plants here that it was not a hardship. I'll say that. Okay. The bugs, you call them harlequin bugs. The hubby calls them potato bugs. He said, get some snuff and put it in a stocking and shake it on the plants to keep them off. Okay, I will try that. I've heard tobacco is a good bug repellent. Those passion fruit are supposed to be delicious. I'm getting ready to start things for fall. Cherry tomatoes do way better for me than the bigger ones. And we had cherry tomatoes that were growing here wild, but they didn't come up this year. Um, and we do have some that have grown up in another part of the property, but the hornworm bugs are kind of eating them too. So we'll just have to see. What I canned this year was sauerkraut, and I made like 20 pints of jam. Passion fruit seeds you sent didn't grow this year. Maybe they need 2 years, Christy B said. Christy B, I don't even know. Like I said, these things grew on their own. So if I sent you seeds, I don't know. I don't know if you have to put them in water first. If they didn't take, maybe the seeds aren't the way to replant them. I know they're a vine and they grow up under the ground. So I'm not sure. I so have a brown thumb, or I just hate gardening. Mrs. Pleasant, I am in England, that's right. Gordon says hi. Yeah, the passion fruit are really tasty. I love having them in the breakfast. Supreme Court declined to hear Nevada versus Calvary Church last week. Cowardice and deceit towards the First Amendment. Well, I'm sure. Nobody really wants churches to have any power. We have passion fruit here in the garden growing high up in the trees, making great cheesecake. Wow. I never thought about doing cheesecake with them. I'd love to do a juice with them, but I'm not sure how I would do that. Mrs. Pleasance, hello. That's right. Adnir and you are in the same country. The hornworms will eat tobacco. The hubby says they'll be more attracted to it. Might be worth a try to plant some. Interesting. We have so many cherry tomatoes that we can't give them away. David Campbell, can them. I cover everything with a thick layer of straw when I rest an area of the garden. Yeah, I've started using just that heavy black plastic in parts of the garden where I don't want anything to come up, including weeds. And part of it, we just put the cardboard down and are putting the mulch on because there was nothing growing in that section too. Tobacco is good for pests. You can also soak it and spray it on the plants. Gordon House, Thailand, spent many weeks worth of time in Phuket. He's got a channel too there, Lynn. You can see every, like he does a video every day or a couple of days. Yahweh has blessed us regarding the garden. And hallelujah for it, right? Sister Kate, do you have any wisdom or encouragement for people who might be feeling like it's too late to get right with God and or prepare for what is coming and are feeling hopeless? Yeah, absolutely. It's never too late. It's never too late with the Lord. And he has some parables about that. About the servants who come to work for him in the morning and he tells them you're going to get this wage. And then people who show up at noon, and he tells them you're going to get the same wage. And people who show up at the end of the day, and he tells them you're going to get the same wage. And the ones who show up in the morning are like, why are you going to give them the same thing? They're not going to work the same amount of time. It's not about the work. It's about salvation. Getting right with God happens as soon as you want to get right with God. There is no time limit, and it's instantaneous. So don't give up hope. And prepare for what is coming. I'm of more than one mind on the prepping. I think prepping is just a practical thing, as well as, you know, there could be something else coming down the pike, something bigger than just your everyday prepping. And my husband's channel, Viking Preparedness, he has some videos on getting started. And basically to get started, you just start taking little bites, like how you eat an elephant. You can't eat the whole elephant. You got to take bites. What, honey? Oh, yes, and he's also saying buy his book. What's the title, hon?
Survivalist Family, Prepared Americans for a Strong America.
Survivalist Family, Prepared Americans for a Strong America. That's his book, and it's available at Barnes & Noble and Amazon.com. And he has information in there on getting started also. But you do it a bit at a time. And you do it in a way, like if you eat tuna every week, you buy 2 cans of tuna to start prepping, you buy 3. And you put the one away for maybe later on. So you can do it. Don't be discouraged. Take a step. Trust me, Sister Kay, they make the most fabulous cheesecake topping. Oh man, I believe that. Chasing, it's the nicotine that they don't like. I totally used to think that I had the brownest of thumbs, but I found that to be absolutely not true. Opposite, actually, gardening is now pretty much my favorite thing to do. Awesome! You live in Phuket. I love Phuket, and I've traveled all over Thailand. Beautiful place. Lee says. Maybe didn't see my question.
After this COVID thing, tell Gordon we're going to come see him.
Pastor says after this COVID thing, we're going to come see you, Gordon. A few Torah observant families here. What about Tribe Mag with regular Christians? Sure, why not? I mean, your Tribe Mag can be based on just mutual protection and prepping and security. Am I not right about that, Pastor?
I'm sorry, what?
Your mag doesn't necessarily have to be all Torah observant people if there's not like your area. It can just be based on mutual security.
You should work with everybody who wants to work with you.
Right. You should work with everyone who wants to work with you. It's a bonus if they're Torah observant too. It will make it easier if you're all on one page about something. But if there's not enough Torah observant families, then yeah, just with whoever wants to do group things. You don't have to make it be a big issue. Besides throwing seeds, the ground has to be prepared anyway. So you're not going to be able to, instantaneously meet Christians, have them be like, wow, you're right. We've been wrong this whole time. It doesn't work that way normally. So, yeah, meet with whoever will meet with you. Okay. Chiang Rai. That's right, he's Chiang Rai. Not Phuket. Here we go.
Are you still alive?
Yeah, I'm still alive. Okay. It only takes a moment to connect with God in a meaningful way. That's right. Really? Thailand was just beautiful when I was there. The nicotinoids can affect bees. I have lost so many hives over the last few years. Oh, well, I don't want to lose bees. I've been to Chiang Rai and Chiang Mai and also did a 3-day hill tribe trek. Ooh, that sounds kind of like fun. Hey, Lee and Gordon, are there mandatory vaccines you have to get to be there? And do you have to take anti-malaria pills while you're there? Good suggestion. We post your area and see if someone is thinking the same thing. Amen, Sister Kate. Becca Repurposed just received her copy of Pastor Joe's book. I hope it's helpful for you. I'm pretty sure I've done that the first time. Maybe try checking again. Thank you, Doug said. No problem. Any news on Pastor's new book? Any news on Pastor's new book? No. My food supply started with spending for $5 at a time. Exactly. You can make it as small as that. I'm having trouble finding local fellowship also. We tried going to the United Church of God, and this past Shabbat, the pastor actually said that some of the law changed. Like circumcision isn't done. Yeah. If you watch shofarmountain.com, pastor sermons go up every first day. The sermon of the day before. You could also try hosting a Shabbat thing at your house and putting that out on like social media or whatever. I mean, of course, there's always a risk, but like We Tree said, if you put yourself on 119 Ministries as a Torah observant person for your area, maybe other people will want to connect once they see you're there. And the other option is moving to an area where there are more Torah observant peoples. That's kind of what coming out of Her My People is about. But yeah, I mean, sometimes you have to be the one who's hosting something. Preparedness is necessary for survival. Great news, you can stay in our guest room. We can stay in their guest room, honey. Aw.
Thank you. Kapkum ka.
Kapkum ka. I want to hang out in the cattle barn. Check out those cows. Sister Kate, you will love Thailand. Y'all should definitely go.
How long you lived there?
Well, Lee, I do love Thailand. I used to live there. But what I'd really like to do, Gordon, and I know you probably have connections so you can set it up, is ride an elephant. I haven't done that in a while, and I think that would be a hoot. So that would be my request if we actually do end up coming over there. Maybe we need an online meetup place for those without local folks. WeTree, are you going to host it? Are you going to do a website or something for that? For find your Torah observant people online? Are there still small parcels of land in that area, and what kind of prices? I'm assuming you're talking to me, Steve. I'm going to have you say yes or no to that first. Yes, I've got mulberry bushes. They grow wild, and tomatoes. I planted a raspberry bush, but I'll keep trying. I will work with anyone, but within my gates. Torah is the law. Not everyone can accept that. Right. I mean, there is a limit to what you, right, within your gates you can accept. You can't have people bringing unclean food and shattering the Shabbat and stuff like that. But that doesn't mean that you can't store food or say, we're going to mutual aid if we have an emergency. I think as long as you've got enough in common with folks and there's no big issues, go for it. No malaria here, Sister Kate. Awesome, Gordon. How about things like typhoid and cholera and all that? Yellow fever, dengue fever? Did you have to get vaccines for any of that stuff? Sister Kate?
Thailand you do.
I'm asking Gordon. He lives there. I know about getting shots to go to Thailand. I had to do it.
You gotta like that gamma globulin.
Gamma globulin. God, you gotta love that shot. Sister Kate, you have to take anti-malaria pills. I don't remember about the vaccine. If there is a case, the authorities are on it. Lick a rat up a drain pipe, spraying all areas. Gordon, lick a rat up a drain? Is that like a British thing? Or you mean that literally? Actually, WeTree. Nothing like that exists on Viking preparedness. Gotta do what you can, a little at a time. Just keep trying and learn and do a little more. Exactly. But I was trying to do something local due to a dream I had. I was shown that I received the Holy Spirit in a church. Okay, not sure what you mean by that, Lamb Keeper, because the Holy Spirit coming to you is a personal thing. And basically you pray for it, right? I mean, it's given as part of your belief in Messiah. But you also have to, when you read the word about it coming down, you also have to be keeping the commandments. But it doesn't have to come through a church. I'm in a rural area. That's part of why there's not many local Torah observant families. Kentucky for anyone. Kentucky does have Torah observant people.
Every place has Torah.
Right? Each state does have it. We know of a group there called the Covenant, and they're Torah observant, but I don't know where in Kentucky they are. I would think you might try hosting a Sabbath thing. Shalom, everyone. Deborah L. I'm headed to my bug out location Wednesday. Wow. Horse trailer full of supplies, meeting my tribe for a few weeks of hard work. Nice. Enjoy that. That's really cool. I have no clue how to do anything online, but we'll foot the bill to someone that can build and run it. Okay, there's opportunity right there for you, Torah observant people. I should go and catch one immediately. Train it so you can ride here all the way from the airport. 555. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Just put the suitcases on the back and go. Yes. Okay. So, in our immediate area, it's pretty expensive. It's about $8,000 an acre. But if you just kind of, I am pastor, broaden. You're looking around. There's more affordable stuff. You just have to make it not as specific. Okay. Nope. We are all healthy. The odd case of dengue, but again, the authorities spray everywhere like. Okay. All right. Because when, 30, 40 years ago when we were there, it was, you got all the shots in the world. We in Minnesota haven't found anyone following Torah besides us. Minnesota. The one Minnesotan we knew moved down to our area, but his dad is still up there. They're near Minneapolis. He's near Minneapolis. I don't know. I mean, you guys are welcome to try to find each other here while you're on my live stream, but I don't have anyone that I know specifically in Minnesota. I know somebody in Wisconsin, Sustainable Steward. She's Torah observant. There was more to the dream than that, but the second half of the dream took place in a church, and that's what I latched onto. But I think the church was just dream other than message. Right. Exactly. I mean, dreams can be... Okay, so people would say dreams can be prophetic, but when Americans say prophecy and prophetic, they mean they foretell the future. Like you've got a crystal ball and you're going to be able to see what's happening in the next year. Biblical prophecy is not that. Biblical prophecy is when God comes to you personally and says, I'm going to give you a message, prophet, and you're going to go tell it to Israel, my people. Like the leaders of Israel, each one of them had prophets in their time, and that prophet would come to that leader and say, hey, knock, knock. The Lord says get right with the commandments and quit worshiping the false gods, or he's going to whammy you. And the prophet, I mean, some of those prophets had a really hard time. Some of them walked around in the desert for time periods eating grasshoppers. Some of them were walking around without clothes on. Some of them were wearing camel hair. One of the prophets was told, marry 2 prostitutes, so you know what it's like for me as the God of Israel and Jacob. Is that right? Israel? And Judah. That's right. Judah. They are whoring after other gods. I want you to experience what I have to experience with these horrible, stubborn, stiff-necked people. Go marry 2 prostitutes. So being a prophet chosen by God to carry a message to people was not always a piece of cake. The guy in the belly of the fish. Man, isn't my memory really bad? It's because it's a live stream, and I'm kind of person who gets excited when I'm talking to other people, so my brain stops working. But that guy was a prophet. Wonderful day to you too, Gordon. It's good to hear from you. Jonah, exactly. Jonah, 3 days in the belly of the whale, right? He's a prophet. He's supposed to go to Nineveh and say, get right with the Lord. He messes up. He's 3 days in the belly of a whale. Being a prophet was not a great thing. And so and I'm not saying this is specifically you, I know you're sharing. In my mind, I'm actually thinking of other people who've told me they had dreams or they, thought something meant something. The one lady said she'd been having dreams and visions about destruction of New York City and a bunch of other things, and she'd been telling people and nobody ever wanted to hear it. And I said, your dream, if it's from God, has to follow the rules that are in the Bible. And the rules in the Bible don't say, I'm going to send you a vision of New York being destroyed and you're supposed to warn everybody. That's not how God used his prophets. His prophets were to go to his people, and almost every single time it's because they're wandering off in their faith, and he says, get back to my commandments. Worship only me. Stop worshiping gods of wood and stone. Stick with the one God. Follow my rules. That was normally how that worked. So as far as a dream being a vision of something going to happen in the future, personally, now I'm not slamming anybody, but I'm saying personally that is not usually the way the Lord worked. It could be your intuition, it could be your subconscious, it could be lots of different things. Bill Gates has an idea to dump particulates, dust, etc. into upper atmosphere to stop global warming. That's just kind of crazy because I don't think global warming is a real thing. He was sent to the capital of Assyria. Exactly. We aren't where we need to be in location or preps, but we are way better than where we were, and we still keep working on it. There you go. I just thought I was being responsible. Well, there you go. That's right. Prepping is a very practical thing. First part of the dream deals with temptation, and then I had to step on a scale. Second part was receiving the Holy Spirit. I'm definitely not a prophet. I mean, it could be symbolic. Stepping on a scale is about judgment, and the Father says he wants scales balanced. So if you step on a scale, you reap what you sow. You sow what you reap. Reap what you sow. Yeah. So if you sow bad seed, then you get the reward for that. It sounds more like symbology to me. Ask PJ if doing an online ministry for those who have no Torah observant folks nearby is okay on the Sabbath. Okay, I need to understand your question a little bit better. If you just fellowship with other people online on the Shabbat, I think that's probably fine. You're fellowshipping with people, especially if there's no money exchanged. Right. Like if y'all went to a forum or a Zoom or something, I mean, you're getting together with other believers. I don't see where that would be a problem. I feel like we will never feel like we're done or that we've got it all what you need better than we were and working on it. That's exactly it. It's a process. I mean, I could say this year the garden was pretty much a failure, but I won't because I got a lot of the greens out of it that I wanted to get out of it, and I got some tomatoes. So to me, it's a success. Can we do better? Absolutely. Sister Kate, I'm with you on global warming. Shake my head. Now I'm starting to lean towards grand solar minimum. Yeah, me neither. I mean, whatever the sun is doing, of course, would affect weather. I'm just not convinced that we're seeing anything new. The human race has only been studying the weather the way we study it now last 50 years. But when you look at history, the weather did all sorts of changing and weird things in the past. In 1888, there was a snowstorm in New York City that had 12 feet of snowfall and 30-foot drifts. There was also a huge snowstorm up in Nebraska, North Dakota in the 1930s that left 30 to 50-foot drifts and buried entire barns with snow. Sorry, I haven't seen anything like that in my lifetime. and I'm almost 60. So I'm not convinced there's any kind of emergencies. I just think weather is cyclical, and we're going to see what weather happens. If it's droughty, it's droughty. If it's rainy, it's rainy. If it's warmer in the poles, then it's warmer in the poles. It's been that way before. They have found shipwrecks from 200 years ago in the Great Lakes this year. Okay, well, that means 200 years ago, the Great Lakes were at this low level in the Great Lakes, so that the ships wrecked, and then they were there, and now we're seeing them again 200 years later. The weather changes. It's, anyway. Hey, Renee. Well, like the weather, exactly. Mrs. Plesson said it. Adapt 2030 has a lot of great info on Grand Solar Minimum, but what sold me was the Russian mathematician that said it was coming. I'm very skeptical. I'm not saying you can't believe it or whatever. You do what you need, but I'm just really skeptical. I think weather changes, and that's all there is to it. Not the best gardening year myself either, with crazy weather, late start, and move necessitating, leaving most behind, but praise the Father, got way more than expected. Hallelujah. I watched Chris on Friday night and Saturday night. It's a real blessing to be able to participate with people rather than just watch. Exactly. Brother Chris on Following Yeshua usually does do live streams on Friday and Saturday nights, and other Torah observant people are in there commenting, and it's whatever. Absolutely agree. The earth is just going through a cycle we haven't seen as humans. I was even able to put up some from the garden and seed saved this year, and I didn't expect that. Well, good for you. I think seed saving is amazing. I'm not very good at it, but chasing life, you've done very well. My garden is awful, but plenty of chicken, eggs, and lamb. Can't argue with that. On my third crop this year, planting beans everywhere as the last crop ready for winter. Mrs. Pleasant, you're amazing. Great job. I wish I could say that. I would say I'm kind of on my second crop. I did replant some peas. I threw some kale seeds out today. I really should plant turnips soon. I did right before the drought hit us. It was like 2 weeks long, which is not a huge thing, but when you don't, do water yourself, it really put a whammy on some of the plants. But I've got like a squash plant, and maybe a few potatoes up there, but I'm not going to count them yet. And there is a little bit of amaranth. I did plant some amaranth around, and I'm seeing the amaranth come up. So, and that's something new for me. I'm actually like, wow, that's really cool. We also planted garbanzo beans this year, which were new for us. And due to we didn't even know what the plant looked like, I probably pulled some of them out because I thought it was a weed. But we do have garbanzo beans that we grew ourselves. So now we've done it once and we know what we're doing. We can plant them again and hopefully get more. And the peas did great. We planted a bunch of peas. We had peas. We ate fresh peas for like 2 weeks. We didn't really freeze any or can any. I have a good recipe for pickling cherry tomatoes. Ours turned out really mushy. Listen to Pastor Dal on Shabbat and Pastor Joe on first day, bear the rest of the week. Well, there you go, J.A. Dudley. Us Torah observant women need more online fellowship opportunities because it's really hard to learn from a woman wife side when there are none in the area. So what are you suggesting, Miss Deborah? Are you and Weetree going to get together and host like a live stream or something? Do you have a pond? I store water in one. We have a pond that's like a mud hole for the ducks. But our water is different. You're doing better than me. Okay. Things going well in Western Australia. Good, Walbogan. Are you canning stuff out of your garden? Barry Honeycutt. Shalom. Rats got our green beans. We've taken care of that now, and I just got more in the grind. Good. We planted like 0 green beans, and we intended to plant a bunch because we did get busy. also during the middle of, gardening season. We had a lot going on. I finally planted some cucumbers that came up. I got one cucumber off of it, and now I think the bugs are destroying the plants. So that's kind of, ugh. But I've got like 5 basil plants. A lot of my other herbs that I've had planted are doing fine. I've got sage, tons of chives. I mean, the way I garden, I could be better at it, but I usually have at least something. Like you saw this passion fruit. I consider it successful if something's growing well. I'm newer to tour observant, but I'd be willing to help with technical sides and learn from the fellowship side. Got a couple buckets of green beans picked yesterday. Good job, John. We are canning and harvesting broccoli and cauliflower seeds. Awesome. You're canning broccoli or you're canning the seeds? My broccoli is fine and healthy out there, but I need to go cut it. And I showed you those harlequin bugs on the Brussels sprouts. They're awful. They really are. I should go out there. I'm going to have to get off the live stream. It's been twice as long as I thought it would be, but and I need to go make our dinner. So, like, maybe tomorrow I can go out there and, like, squish them by hand. And I think the next spray I'm going to try out there is going to be the vinegar with the Dawn in it. Because someone around my area said that worked well for them. Yeah. Lamp keeper, I agree. We plant green beans. Time management. We planted green beans when we got this house 5 years ago and haven't planted anymore. But green beans come up every year. That's awesome. Only thing we're getting is cherry tomatoes and okra. That's why we were getting ready for fall. Okra is a superfood. I don't know if you knew that, but it's great. Have you heard of companion gardening? I have. It's in the Reader's Digest Back to Basics book, and it generally works. Joining us Wednesday evening, Women's Tour Observant Bible Study Group on Zoom. Chasing Life, I might be interested in that. You have to have the Zoom app to do that, though, right? Can you email me the details at morgan55@hotmail.com? Planting like marigolds. Bugs don't like them. Yep. And we had a sister try that, but the marigolds came up and blossomed after the plants that she wanted the marigolds to protect. So there was a timing thing, and so the marigolds didn't help her at all. I love okra, raw, boiled, fried, and pickled. If you know any other way, let me know. You've got them all. I plant nasturtiums. Nasturtiums are awesome. Seeds are edible and all that. Forward the info to me also, please. All right, Weed Tree, but you may have to remind me. Okay, thank you, Chasing Life. And you got the email? Chicken gumbo. Yep, okra goes in gumbo. Are good for getting rid of bad bugs. Really? I didn't know that. I tried planting them here and they didn't come up, but there could be 100 reasons. Weeds could have choked them out. Oh, all right, you guys, it's been 2 hours. I'm tired. I need to go cook dinner. So I'm going to get offline. Without shellfish. Exactly, Mrs. Pleasance. All right, shalom, y'all. It was good to see all y'all. We're just going to keep plugging at it. Just keep plugging at it. Even though, like I said, my garden could do better. I'm not discouraged. I will make improvements and keep going. I'm going to get some, like I said, I've already planted some stuff out there. And I need to plant more for the winter garden. Thank you, David Campbell. Thank you, Craig, and Chasing Life, and Wee Tree, and Westhold Forge, and Lamp Keeper, and Earl's Daughter. Can't have Pastor Fox hangry. And Jesus, and Deborah. Shalom, and thank y'all for coming. And Lynn. And Primrosy, sorry, we're shutting down. Renee, shalom, everyone. Good to see you. And, oh, gracious. There's more of you guys. Come on, get Sergeant James. And Miss Lovely Dudley. Angie Kelly, that's the name. Thank you for coming. And Mark and Aidnir, always good to see you. Still waiting on my fish and chips, Aidnir. Got to figure out how we can make that happen. And Steven. Trying to think of all y'all's names without having to go back and peek. But I'm coming up with blanks. And Jesus and Mrs. Pleasance, I said them. All right, bless y'all. Shalom, shalom, shalom. Cut it out, Huzzah.